Hello there, this is Eli J. Brown / Eli J. Brony, and welcome to my very first top 10 list, at least in a while. And this is my first top 10 TUFF Puppy characters list. I mentioned on DeviantArt that I was going to do a number of different TUFF Puppy character lists, and for this one, I am doing the top 10 TUFF Puppy one-off characters. This will be listing the best characters who only had one episode appearance. And I'm going to mention that I'm only counting actual appearances. Mentions of characters do not count. So, without further ado, I'm going to get right into this. Number 10 on the list, Snowflake and Slush, from the episode Chili Dog. Now in this episode, Dudley and Kitty were informed that there was this ice skating rink, and there was somebody who was trying to take out the competition. Now, they don't know who it is that is taking out the competition at first. Though, of course, the answer that is given to you would be quite a surprise. It turns out that it is these rabbits named Snowflake and Slush. Snowflake mentions that she and her brother had never won a skating competition, and that they decided to take out the rest of the competition so that there would be nobody left to give the trophy to, so Snowflake and Slush would be the winners. They almost managed to get away with this, but Dudley and Kitty then step in, and they do a better job at skating, and so they end up winning the trophy. As to what happens to Snowflake and Slush afterwards, I'm not really sure. They were just kids, and I highly doubt that they went to jail, and they should be too young for that, right? Well, anyway, that was Snowflake and Slush. Number 9 on the list is the Overbear from the episode TUFF Breakup. Now, some people had thought that this was the final episode of the series, but I think I read up that this is actually the first episode of Season 3. Yeah, the series is still ended, but I don't think that TUFF Breakup was the final episode of the series, just the first episode of Season 3. Now, the Overbear was introduced as a villain who supposedly had captured the chief, after Dudley, Kitty, and Keswick decided to quit TUFF and do different jobs. And the job was to get a bunch of mayonnaise from Birdbrain's lair and bring it over to the Overbear's lair, which is actually his sister's house, in exchange for the chief. But it turns out that it was just a setup so that the chief could get Dudley, Kitty, and Keswick back as working agents. However, while the Overbear did fake kidnap the chief, he is actually a villain, where he plans to use the mayonnaise, which turns out to be the obeyannaise, and use it to hypnotize everyone in Metropolis, or at least everyone at the Super Bowl. So Dudley and Kitty are told that they need to use this sort of formula that Keswick made, which can be used to return the citizens back to normal. And so after this, the Overbear is arrested, and Dudley and Kitty and Keswick are back working at TUFF. This pretty much did sound like it would have really worked for a finale, but I think it's actually Season 3's first episode. Number 8 on the list is the Bluffalo from the episode Bluff Puppy. Now, this was quite an interesting villain character on the list. Now, something that you've noticed is that so far on this list, I have been talking about villain characters, but that is not what this list is about. I am not listing these characters because they are villains. I am listing these characters because they only appeared in one episode. And so far, they just happen to be villains, but there are some heroic characters on this list, or at least characters who are good. The Bluffalo was introduced as a new henchman to Fluff, the fiendish league of triple perpetrators. I think that's how it's said. And what does the Bluffalo do? Well, he just bluffs. Though, he does all sorts of bluffing towards the TUFF agents, such as saying that they're going to shrink down Metropolis, but it's just a bunch of popsicle sticks put together to form a small-scale version of Metropolis. And then there is the one with the Chinese dragon terrorizing the people of Chinatown. But then, Flop decides to make an actual real crime. But the Bluffalo can't get himself to do it, at least not without having to change his name. It was quite a shame that the Bluffalo didn't appear for any more than just this one episode, but I really liked the way that he talked and how he would always go, "I'm bluffing." Number 7. Number 7 on the list, we're kind of steering away from the villains, but for this next character, it starts out as a villain, but does turn good later. This next character on the list is KIL-R, from the episode Dog's Best Friend. Now, KIL-R is this killer robot that Snaptrap either bought or made. I think it was actually bought, to be quite honest. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, Snaptrap can't figure out how to get the robot to work properly, so he sends him away. But then KIL-R meets up with Dudley, and Dudley thinks that his name is KIL-R because Dudley can't read very well. So he and KIL-R go around and have a friendship montage. But then, as soon as Snaptrap discovers that KIL-R is in TUFF, he decides to put him into killer mode. But KIL-R can't get himself to kill Dudley, and then he becomes a good guy despite the remote control that Snaptrap has to control him. And so KIL-R becomes a new agent working at TUFF. Would have been good if we had seen him again, but oh well. At least we started to get away from the villain characters on the list. But now we are going on to a character on this list who never was evil at all. Number 6 on the list is the Grammar Gopher, who appeared in the episode Lucky Duck. In the show, the Grammar Gopher taught kids about, well, grammar. But Quacky, who is the main character of the show, decided to fire him. At the end of the episode, as soon as Quacky is arrested, he appears again. And Kitty is very happy and declares that it is the bestest day ever. But the Grammar Gopher tells her it should be best day ever, and that bestest isn't a word. Kitty then figures out why Quacky fired him. Well, come on, he's just trying to correct your grammar. I mean, I'm sure that there are a number of people that don't use their grammar properly, but sometimes they don't even care. Sometimes people will say the word bestest, they know it's wrong, but they don't care. I just thought that it was hilarious how he corrected Kitty like that. It's best day ever. Bestest. It's a real word. Yeah, I kind of laughed at that because I just thought that that line was so funny. Number 5 on the list is the Phonic Fox. The Phonic Fox, while not appearing in person, did appear as a Quaction figure. She appears as one of the Quaction figures that Quacky the Duck gives to Dudley at his restaurant, Quack in the Box, which is all part of a plan to frame Dudley, because the Quaction figures are actually remote controlled by Quacky, which are then used to destroy the other restaurant in Metropolis. So Quack in the Box would be the most popular restaurant. However, the Chief actually has a crush on the Phonic Fox and dates the Quaction figure, which kind of makes the other agents be concerned about him, because they tell him that he should not fall in love with things that aren't real. And as you can probably imagine, by the end of the episode, all the Quaction figures, including the Phonic Fox, had to be destroyed, breaking the Chief's heart. Now, I actually found this idea of the Chief dating the Phonic Fox to be quite interesting. So much so that I even had it actually happen in my fanfic series. Like, here's a picture that I drew of the Chief and the Phonic Fox, the real one, not the Quaction figure, in the Chief's office. Number 4 is Garrett, from the episode Tough Sale. Now, I know a number of you, particularly cuddly shippers, don't like the water delivery guy named Eric. I certainly don't like him either. However, in the episode Tough Sale, we find out that he has a brother named Derek. In this episode, Snaptrap manages to buy Tuff, and in an attempt to get all the Tuff agents to quit Tuff so that he can collect their keys, he fires Eric and replaces him with his uglier brother named Derek to try to get Kitty to leave Tuff. Now, Derek doesn't look as handsome as his brother, but I prefer him over Eric. In fact, in my fanfiction, I even made him be the permanent water delivery guy. Number 3 on the list is Dr. Rabies and Madame Catastrophe. Dr. Rabies and Madame Catastrophe appeared in the episode The Doomies, and they have a striking resemblance to Dudley and Kitty. Because of this, Dudley and Kitty are sent undercover to go at the bad guy award show called The Doomies. Now, Dudley and Kitty managed to stop all sorts of different crimes during this time. However, back at Tuff, the real Dr. Rabies and Madame Catastrophe escape, and they expose the imposters. But, as always, Dudley and Kitty managed to save the day. Now, here are a few questions that I have had, and also some questions that a couple of other people have had. First, here's a question that some other people may have about these characters. Number 1. Are Dr. Rabies and Madame Catastrophe related to Dudley and Kitty? Well, in my fanfiction, Dr. Rabies is actually Dudley's long-lost father, and Madame Catastrophe is actually one of Kitty's sisters, besides Caddy, of course. And both were actually put under hypnotism.
And 2, why didn't the Chief and Keswick lock Dr. Rabies and Madame Catastrophe up in an actual jail cell? I mean, they just chained them up and just left them out in the open where they could have easily escaped. And they had. Good thinking, Chief and Keswick.
Number 2 on the list is Caddy Catwell from the episode A Tale of Two Kitties. She was first mentioned in Diary of a Mad Cat and in Bluff Puppy, and in the episode A Tale of Two Kitties, finally get to see her for the first time. And, as I had guessed, she looks a lot like Kitty, minus the white stripe in her hair. In the episode, Caddy manages to escape from jail, and she makes an attempt to switch places with Kitty so she can steal the gold fishbowl at the Petropolis Museum. She is able to switch places with Kitty, and she tries to get the gold fishbowl, but Dudley does his best to try to stop her. Meanwhile, Kitty makes a deal with Snaptrap that if she can help him to dig a hole that doesn't go around in a circle, he'll let her join in his escape from prison. Kitty manages to get to the Petropolis Museum, and she tells the police about Caddy and how she was trying to steal the gold fishbowl, and how Dudley was claiming that he stole the gold fishbowl because he thought that he was being loyal to Kitty. So, not a bad episode to introduce Caddy. Certainly quite an interesting character. Alright, now it's time for the number 1 one-time appearance character on the list. Alright, so before I get into that, here are numbers 10 through 2 again. Number 10, Snowflake and Slush. Number 9, the Overbear. Number 8, the Bluffalo. Number 7, KIL-R. Number 6, Grammar Gopher. Number 5, Phonic Fox. Number 4, Derek. Number 3, Dr. Rabies and Madame Catastrophe. Number 2, Caddy. And now it's time for the number 1 one-time character, and that would be Daisy from the episode Girlfriend or Foe. I'm not sure how many of you would be surprised by this choice, but I'm going to give my reason as to why I like this character. Now, I am going to point out that I actually do ship Dudley and Kitty together, but I felt that Daisy deserved to have somewhat of a liking. I mean, I just couldn't get myself to hate her for any reason at all. Anyway, I'll give you the backstory. well, the story about this character in the show. In the episode Girlfriend or Foe, Dudley has a girlfriend named Daisy. However, when Dudley and Kitty are sent to pick up some missiles and find them all gone, Kitty suspects that there is a spy in TUFF that is telling Snaptrap about the missile delivery, and she is starting to suspect that it is Daisy. Now, if I watched this episode, like, blind, and had no information about this episode's premise, I actually was informed about what happened in the episode before I actually saw it, I would have thought the same thing. However, Snaptrap calls in and says that he actually was getting this information because Kitty forgot to hang up the phone. Kitty apologizes to Dudley and Daisy for thinking that it was Daisy who was being a spy for Snaptrap. Now, as for Daisy's overall character, well, she speaks with jumbling up the words, which is quite interesting. And another interesting thing is that she happens to be voiced by Tara Strong, who is also known for voicing Timmy Turner in the Fairily Odd Parents and Twilight Sparkle in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. But Tara's voice for Daisy sounds a lot like her voice for Twilight. That's just my personal opinion anyway. Kind of like Daisy sounds like a much more messed up version of Twilight Sparkle. I'm just saying that. And if you have read my fan fiction on DeviantArt, you would know the backstory that I had given to Daisy, evolving around her actually being a secret agent from another agency called the Hawaiian Undercover Fighting Force, and how she was sent in to locate another villain who went by the name Purpose, who turns out to be Eric later on. And it turns out that Daisy was actually faking being in a relationship with Dudley in order for her to get inside of TUFF because she knew that Purpose was located there. And her jumbling up the words was also part of the act, and that she could actually speak just perfectly, just like anybody else could. And she took on the identity of the Huff Fighter when the TUFF agents were sent to Erictopia, formerly known as Kiddly, and she was wearing that suit in order to hide her identity because, well, TUFF agents are pretty much a lot more secure with their identities than TUFF is. So anyway, that was my top 10 TUFF Puppy characters who made one episode appearances. I hope you like this, and if there are other lists that you want me to make, or any other topics that you want me to do, be sure to let me know, and I will consider doing them in a future video.